Welcome back again to the Teach Every Nation studio here on the 10 campus in Limpopo. We are joined in the audience by 20 educators from Asia, Africa, and North America. We explain Teach Every Nation often with 3 C's. I'm going to start with the bottom one. We are blessed with a campus in the middle of a game park, and the goal was to bring pastors and leaders from around the world so that they can enjoy a Garden of Eden as we bring them together to be trained in Teach Every Nation material. But not just Teach Every Nation, many Christian organizations, global ones and local ones, are using the campus as a place to mobilize their leaders to convene and to network and to get them refreshed. And this is an open invitation. Find out from us how we can accommodate your group for 3 or 4 nights here on the campus. The campus is also a setting where we have a wonderful safari operation called Hippo Lakes that funds most of what's going on here on the campus. Well, the second C is countries. By God's grace, we are now in 160 countries where students have downloaded material and have gone through it, or they are going through the micro-seminary that we and SATS are doing together. And we are this week looking for more and more educational institutions to link up with us because our material is now in 10 standard languages that covers more than 50% of the population of the world. And we're continuing, particularly with AI, to translate our material in more material. The third C, which is really the first C, is our curriculum, our courses. We are here to give our students, the pastors and the leaders they teach, head, heart, and hand knowledge. We want to help them to understand Scripture better. We have courses like Survey of the Bible. We want to deeply touch their hearts. Many of you have done 70 times 7. But then we want to give them skills courses, things that will help them in communication and in leadership and in business. And then we are getting some of the world's most competent practitioners, researchers, to teach our material. Our founder, Dr. Bruce Wilkinson, has given us 20 standard core courses. And now we are getting experts from around the world for other specific courses that can meet the needs on all kinds of continents and contexts. Our material is cross-denominational. It works with multiple generations. And we stay biblical in the way of not to frustrate the denominations that are trusting us to equip their people. So you've had the privilege to listen to one educational expert, Dr. Kevin Smith. He is the principal or president of the South African Theological Seminary, and they have over 3,000 students. They are experts in online. That's how they disseminate the material, and they've taken the challenge on to think through the implications and opportunities of AI in higher education. So we've had, he gave us one session on understanding what AI is. He talked to us about in theological education, writing was a principal tool to develop thinking, to develop the theological student, the pastor, the teacher. And now with AI, that whole process can be done. What used to take weeks can take minutes. You know, I just heard that one of my friends is the head of a big school on how to translate the Bible into all the known languages. And once they have a New Testament, in it there's about 6,000 languages, once they have a New Testament, do you know how long it took the community with a different method than the old method to come up with the Old Testament? How long do you think it takes a group of people that don't have an Old Testament but have a New Testament to come up with the first draft of the Old Testament? Take a guess. How long? Sam, how long do you think it takes? 4 years. It takes 4 years, if you already have a New Testament, to come up with the first draft. And then the community draft will be then given to experts that will take it through round 2, etc. He told me that with AI now, how long does it take AI to do a draft of the Old Testament after they are using the work that was done in the New Testament? You want to take a guess? It used to take a day. I think with the NVIDIA chips, it may take a half a day now, or maybe it takes minutes. I don't know. So what took 4 years are now taking hours. Then I asked them, now the people, the experts that take the second round, how long, what do they prefer, the community version or the AI version? What do you think the experts that go to the second round, what do they prefer? The AI version. That is revolutionary. Did you hear me? So it's not just higher education. AI is impacting what the church does in missions, translations, management, everything. I'll show you tonight a few ways how we use it. Another friend of mine, Don Barger, he's here with the IMB. He's going to also be teaching on this. His wife is an RN, a nurse, a sister in the US, very competent. She's a pediatric nurse. She goes around, and because she's Spanish speaking, she's very valuable. She has what's called a scribe, and in the US, the scribe will walk along the doctor or the registered nurse, the RN, and take the data of everything that is said between the mother, the child, and all the systems. And then at night, it took Don's wife about 2 hours to do all the work and to write the summaries of every patient. Then the very competent scribe got sick. And they found the $84 a month tool that was put in the iPad that she walked around with that listened to everything that was said. And now at night, it only takes her 15 minutes to come up with better results that happened in the day. Do you think the scribe is going to be hired full-time again? No. AI is challenging so much. And it's challenging things in higher education, but it will be in every aspect of life. And what's going to come next is not just what AI can do mentally, but with what AI will be able to do with robotics. I have an eye problem, so I was very sensitive to go to the best doctor to have my cataract removed 2 years ago. And a very competent doctor. And I was talking about the fact that we're doing an AI course with MIT, our organization, Teach Every Nation. He said, yeah, I only practice in the morning. In the afternoon, I'm teaching a robot to do the cataract surgery. And I'm training the model. So AI is not just going to replace thinking, it's going to replace manual, precise work. Anything from agriculture to operations. It's going to impact all of us. And with that, many, many challenges. And who better now to talk about what challenges, concerns there are in higher education. Please welcome back Dr. Kevin Smith. Give him a big hand.
Hello again. I'll never forget the first time I saw ChatGPT in operation. It was early 2023, not too long after it had come out. And one of our staff had come across it and took some of the assignments from our curriculum, fed them in, and this thing produced incredible responses in seconds. And I watched this and I thought, oh, goodness gracious. Writing is dead. Writing as a learning activity is history. This was 2023. And from there I began to think, well, so much of theological education is reflection in writing. Where do we go from here? Is formal theological education dead? If one of the key methodologies that we rely on is unsustainable. So we're going to look at the dark side for a little bit of the implications of AI for human learning. Some of the dangerous ways in which it undermines learning. It's going to sound like I am negative about AI. I'm not. But I think we need to grasp the threat in order that we might have the motivation to think through where do we go from here in terms of creating great learning experiences. And if we don't grapple with the reality of the changed environment, we are going to be graduating students who have learned to think superficially because they've outsourced their thinking task to the machine. If we keep doing what we've always done, it is going to fail dismally. So, a few ways that AI undermines the learning process in higher education. There's so much talk now about using AI to augment and improve learning, and I'm convinced we're going to master that. We're going to think about how personalized tutors can contribute to learning. We're going to think through the implications of how we use ubiquitous access to the entire knowledge base of the world at your fingertips. We're going to learn to think through how we harness this for critical thinking skills. But one of the things that poses a threat to creating the leaders of the future is that AI makes you feel smart while often making you dumber in the process. It creates the feeling in people that they are learning when in reality they may not be learning as much as they think that they are learning. And our challenge as educators is not to settle for superficial learning as we embrace and use technology. We need to find ways to continue to create the kinds of leaders and graduates who will shape the world. But it's a different world to the one we learned to function in. We'll look at 4 threats. Number 1, the threat to academic integrity. This is the low-hanging fruit that everyone is aware of. Then the threat to desirable difficulty, number 2. Then we're going to look at false confidence as a threat to learning. And 4, we're going to look at some of the impacts on person's brain activity when they are using AI to assist them with a task, or are they assisting the AI with the task? It's not always clear. So number 1 is that AI threatens academic integrity. When the earliest generation of AI was released to the world in early 2023, it sent shivers down the spine of educators everywhere. How on earth are we going to make sure that our students do their own work when the machine can do their work for them almost instantly? And the challenge is that there are no reliable ways to detect artificial intelligence usage in the writing. There are no intelligent ways, there are no reliable ways to know if something has been produced by or with AI. So it threatens the very integrity of the process. And the knee-jerk reaction of so many educational institutions, the first response that maybe all of us had, was to say, well, let's prohibit it. Let's ban the use of AI. Tell our students they're not allowed to use it. Well, then we become Amish seminaries, determined to live in a world that no longer exists, to train people for a reality that will soon be completely irrelevant to them. But the threat to academic integrity is a real one. The crisis facing integrity and security doesn't really need to be rehashed. Just suffice to say that we are all faced with the reality that almost everything that's produced now has an AI component to it. It's become so pervasive that I don't know where my thoughts start and where the machines end, and vice versa. Because every tool that I use has AI integrated into it. The Bible software program, the word processor that one's using to do this thing, which is making recommendations. Everything's integrated into that. And there's this constant to and fro of exchanging ideas as we create stuff. How much of that is me and how much of that is augmented me? The reality is, I don't know. So the one thing I'm convinced of when it comes to the threat of academic integrity is that the worst thing we can try and do is to prohibit and police the use of AI. It simply isn't doable. AI detection software doesn't work. The tools are embedded into everything. So we've got to find ways of responding to this that are relevant to the changed world in which we are functioning. The second threat is that AI destroys desirable difficulty. It destroys desirable difficulty. Deep learning depends on mentally struggling with difficult concepts. We only learn when we struggle. We only grow when there's some kind of tension or resistance, much like physical exercise. And insofar as thinking tasks that require someone to think deeply about a plethora of ideas, there are numerous threats involved here. I'm heavily dependent on an article by de Klerk and McLean who refer to 4 sites of tension. I'm going to suggest actually 5 sites of tension. Traditionally, when somebody has to come up with something from scratch, there's what we might call blank page difficulty. You sit in front of a blank page, whether it's preparing a sermon or a talk or a presentation, and you have to come up with something from scratch. The difficulty of starting with a blank page has been replaced with ease of response. I ask the machine to give me 3 ideas, and within seconds I've got an outline and a framework and a purpose, and I never have to start from scratch myself with the blank page difficulty. So discomfort of starting something creative from scratch has been replaced with ease of response that gives it to you almost automatically. Now, I grew up in a world where every sermon started with a blank page, every article, every assignment, every project. My son is 14. He will never experience that. He will never start anything he has to create with a blank page and experience that discomfort and difficulty. The second point of tension is plurality of input versus superficial input. Think how we've traditionally gone about coming up and with ideas and thinking through complex concepts. What we've traditionally done is that we've consulted a whole bunch of different source materials. Go and read some books. Go and find some journal articles that you can engage. Maybe you find some experts on the subject or some practitioners that you can discuss the topic with. You go and watch some videos on YouTube. What are you getting? You're getting plurality of input. You're getting a variety of different voices. Do all those voices agree with each other? No way. Does everyone have the same perspective or the same experience that they bring to bear on the inputs that they give to you? Not at all. So if you, in your traditional way of framing content, if you go and consult a variety of contributions, a variety of sources of input, you get divergent perspectives, contributions, experiences that come to bear on your thinking. And then you sit with this desirable difficulty of needing to sift through all of that and figure out, what do I discard? What do I believe? How do I integrate this? How do I make it coherent? And a lot of learning happens in that process. Now think what happens with AI. Instead of me going to speak to 3 professors and watch a whole bunch of videos and read some academic articles and consult my favorite commentaries, I can ask one all-knowing sentient being. It goes and sifts through its database and spits out a single perspective. And the temptation, path of least resistance, is that I embrace what it spits out uncritically and adopt it because it's the only perspective I've now got on my subject. You see how that is a shallower experience of learning. The third is productive friction versus ready adoption. Quoted Hemingway earlier. He said, there's nothing to writing. You just sit at the typewriter and bleed. What you actually experience is productive friction. It's really difficult to write well, clearly, convincingly. to formulate your ideas, it's difficult, isn't it? And in the process of struggling and grappling with that, we learn, we frame convictions, we form clearer understanding of the things that we're doing. But now we can bypass that productive friction, because the first draft of anything can be instantly produced. And then the temptation is just to adopt whatever is produced. Path of least resistance, human nature. The next dimension, or the next tension, is diverse modes versus a singular mode. Think about the richness that comes if I'm trying to think through something and I have a conversation with Ebenezer, and then I have a conversation with Hugh, and then I go and find some great video input on YouTube, and I find 2 or 3 good books that are written by people from different perspectives. What I'm getting is diverse modes of input into my thinking. But it takes time. And I have to sift through all of those divergent inputs and try and construct my beliefs in some coherent sense. But the temptation now is that instead of that diverse mode of input, I get a singular input. The all-knowing sentient AI is my sole source. And the fifth tension is critical mastery of content versus uncritical adoption. So in that entire process that I've been describing to you, who is doing the sifting and the thinking as to what is true, what is right, what is good, what is helpful? You are, right? You're getting all different perspectives on something, different voices, and you're the one who's having to make sense of those, decide what you believe, what you don't believe. In other words, in the traditional mold of producing content, you had to think critically. You had to, because you had conflicting views that you were confronted with, and no one else could think through those for you. And that process is incredibly formative. When I've got to decide, both of these arguments about something seem sensible and coherent, but they're at odds with each other. Which one do I believe? There's something powerful in forming those convictions. But we've now in danger of outsourcing that dis-ease, because the machine thinks through the perspectives and gives me a synthesis. And the path of least resistance is to adopt whatever synthesis it spews out. But I rob myself in the process of the opportunity to form convictions and critical thinking. So it threatens desirable difficulty. That was the point. Thirdly, it creates a false sense of confidence. So the first piece of research that came out after ChatGPT went live, First piece that I'm aware of, meaningful, well-constructed research, was a group that did a study with a bunch of high school math students in Turkey. And they divided a large group of math students into 3 groups. So you had a group that was learning their maths the traditional way. You had a group that was learning it with normal ChatGPT, and you had a group that had a personalized, customized AI tutor that was working with them. Then they monitored how they did throughout the term. And the crowd that had the AI tutor, they flew. They were 127% better than they were before, than the unassisted group. The crowd just using the regular ChatGPT engine, they were 40-odd% better during the term than the unassisted group. And the unassisted group, they struggled the most. But then it came exam time, and during the exam, they were not allowed to use the coach or the AI. This group and the last group did equally well. And the group in the middle did abysmally. But they didn't know they were doing abysmally. They were confident that they knew what they were doing, but they hadn't actually learned. And amongst all the fascinating takeaways from that thing, the one that intrigued me the most was that when people are using AI, they think that they know and understand a whole lot more than they actually know and understand. Why? Because I don't know where I end and where the machine starts. There's this blurring. So students' own self-reported perceptions of the effects of GPT tutors on their exam performance and learning tended to be overly optimistic. So in essence, the concern here is that when we are using it to augment learning, it often creates an inflated sense of achievement, self-confidence, etc. Now, do we have to use it to augment learning? There's no alternative. There's no alternative. The alternative is we become extinct. But how we do it? Massive questions to work through there. The last way that it threatens learning is that AI disables brain activity. So this was an MIT study that was done recently and recently reported. The study divided 54 adults into 3 groups and monitored their brain activity during writing assignments. They monitored brain activity using an EEG. And it was done over a couple of months. And in the different groups, some were allowed to use AI technology while writing essays, and I think there were 3 groups, all the way down to a group that was not allowed to use any AI. So you had Group A that used ChatGPT, Group B that used Google searches only, and Group C that didn't use any AI. And the findings were both predictable and startling. The brain scans found that the group that was using AI, their brains were less engaged. They were literally thinking less. And that's completely predictable, isn't it? So the ChatGPT group not only consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels, but also got lazier with each essay that they wrote. And the EEGs found that weaker neural connectivity and unengaging alpha and beta networks. So they were less engaged. And it stands to reason, because you lose something of the desirable difficulty when the machine is thinking for you. And when I adopt its viewpoint, I feel like it's my viewpoint. But I might not really have thought that thing through in adequate depth and detail. So we've entered a brave new world, friends. It's the world of AI. And we have, at this stage, very limited understanding of its long-term impact on the world, on humanity, on ourselves, on learning. There's no denying that it is remarkable technology with immense potential. Martin mentioned earlier that the potential for translation is completely game-changing. That we can translate the Bible or just about anything else almost instantly and at a level of excellence that we've never been able to do before. That we can produce amazing things. It's amazing. And people love it. And they should love it. We can find anything instantly. We can produce outputs that we were never able to. In the process, we feel like geniuses. But we're probably not. At this early stage, the long-term implications on human intelligence remain to be determined. Our challenge as educators is how do we continue to generate critical thinking, communication skills? How do we continue to develop thinking practitioners? How do we continue to produce people who are fit for ministry, if that's the business that we're in? How do we produce people who are fit for ministry in a brave new world where some of the strategies that we've traditionally relied on are no longer going to work? And I think the biggest challenge before us is to think through how our educational institutions respond to the presence of AI. We dare not go the police and prohibit route. That's the route of death. Institutions that prohibit and police the use of AI will be extinct in the relatively near future. Our challenge is to function optimally in the world in which we now live.